Oh, yeah, you can have it.
Call this meeting of the Donegal Township Board of Supervisors to order with the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call.
Okay, Mr. Ely,
Here.
I'm present, and Mr. Prescott.
I'm here.
Road Department. Ed here? Let me see. I just thought about a couple things. The Red International, they got it going. Peterbilt had a little issue, they got it going. Have to get 2 tires for the 550, they got 4 already, but they need the other 2, so going to get that. But everything else seems to be going pretty good. Fire Department. Eric Graham.
Thank you.
How are you gentlemen this evening?
Good. Fine and dandy.
Take a couple minutes tonight, I'd like to and present the annual report for the West Alexander Volunteer Fire Department, which each of you have a copy there. Would like to touch on a couple things before I even talk about this. A couple of projects that we've been dealing with and you know, we've been talking to you guys about for a couple years now, one being the new bays added onto our building. We are ready to sign a contract with the builder, hoping to break ground in April for it. Right now, we're about, without cashing in any of our investments, we're about $100,000 from the total, which it was kind of our goal to be borrowing less than 100. So, you know, if we decide to cash in 20, you know, then we're going to borrow 80, whatever it is. You know, the department decides to do it. You know, we're right at that tipping point. So, it's a lot of work by a lot of guys who it's come to fruition finally.
When do you expect to start construction?
We're looking at April. Yeah, we're looking at raising the building that's there in March and being ready to build for April. So.
Mr. Solicitor, what will we be able to do as far as township on our building permit fees? Can we work with them on that? I mean,
Yes.
I'm obviously we have to pay our inspectors.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, as far as anything above and beyond that.
You can discuss either a waiver, partial waiver, to assist.
Lumber's a big potato.
The other thing I want to touch on you with is, you know, I know we let you know in the past that we'd obtained 2 Federal Emergency Management Agency grants in 2016. One being for a truck, which is going to replace our rescue vehicle. Total on that was $215,000. The other for 23 sets of turnout gear at a little over $68,000. We have the chassis. It's at the builders now, so we have a build number, and we've got to just sign a contract with them. 270-day contracts. You know, they occasionally do go over that, but they start paying $100 a day if they do. So if they start going over 270 days, I hope they go months over 270 days. But it looks like probably by September, we'll have that vehicle in place. And the turnout gear actually comes second week of February. So those are both great news. If you could direct your attention to the annual report, I'd like to touch on a few things in it. On page 5, our membership is still at 32 members, which seems to be consistent for about the last 10 years, somewhere between 30 and 35 members. I'd like to keep a few more that we get because we've actually had a turnover of about 20 guys in the last 10 years, and we maintain that number, which sure would be nice to have all those 20 back and have about 50 guys, but it doesn't seem to happen that way. And currently, out of those 32 members, 16 have emergency medical certifications on the calls. On page 7, it's our call volume statistics. 2016, we had 319 calls, which is unchanged from 2015. We had 319 in 2015 also. What has changed is we've had a 20% increase in our man hours spent on those calls, with just under 4,500 man hours for 2016. On page 9, our budget's kind of laid out there. Our budget has remained the same in 2017, again at $70,000, which was our operating budget in 2016. That $70,000 pretty much pays our bills. That doesn't really buy us a whole lot of new equipment over and above. So we always strive to make over that, but that's pretty much kind of what we feel we can guarantee that $70,000 is going to come through the door. I will say that since 2007, donations to the fire department and donations from the public, the residents, and donations from the township has totaled $354,651. We've taken that $354,000 and through grants and fundraising, we've turned that into $1,419,963. That's a 400% return in 10 years. I don't think you'll find that anywhere. And I bring that up because it seems like a lot that we walk around with our hand out, wanting something, and we do. We need it, but we absolutely make all that money work for us in the best way that we can. Look at page 10. Some of the highlights of the year. Our average cost, or our cost per capita for fire protection in 2016 was $24. The national average is $113 per capita. That's a 79% savings by having a volunteer fire department. We responded to 9 structure fires in 2016. Most of those were automatic mutual aid. 3 of them were in our primary response area. And of those 3, they cost $24,500 in damage. And the property value placed in danger was a little over $116,000. So 79% of the property value was saved. And 100% of the fires were contained to their area of origin within those structures. In 2016, we again did apply for and receive Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency grant for debt reduction on our 2015 QRS vehicle. That was $12,422.79 going towards the debt reduction. We borrowed $42,000 on that truck in 2015, and that'll be paid off next year. On page 12, it talks a little about our operations and emergency management. And at the bottom, one of the indicators of our response and the kind of activity we have is the NFPA 1720 response time standard for rural fire companies is to arrive on scene within 14 minutes of the time of call at least 80% of the time. We again have exceeded that standard by arriving on scene within 14 minutes more than 95% of the time. And in fact, we do arrive on scene within 8 minutes 80% of the time, and our average response time to all emergency responses was 6 minutes and 1 second. I do want to say thank you for continued cooperation that we've had, and thank you to the residents for what you've all done for us. We couldn't survive without either of those things.
Thank you, Eric. Water and sewage.
You got Eric again for that fire marshal report?
I have nothing to offer on that, other than I was sworn in this week, so.
Water and sewage. Gordon Taylor, or Tom, whoever wants to go.
Good, first. I'll go first. Mr. President,
Handout. You had asked us last month to come up with a scope of services for the operation of wastewater treatment plant and the water system. And this is probably a draft, it's 90–95% complete. When you see it here, Tom, this is your copy. Well, let me give this to you.
that's fine.
This is set up in the form of a request for proposal. The first 2 pages are just a summary requesting those services and refer to exhibits A and B, which are exhibit A are the specific duties required of the operator under the contract, and B is a form of service agreement. Starting on page 3 is the actual scope of services for the operation and maintenance of the treatment plant and pump stations. And that goes through page 3, 4, 5, and ends at the bottom of 6, where part 2 is the water distribution system maintenance scope of services, which are very general. They're not as complex and as time-consuming as the wastewater treatment plant. And then attachment number 1 is a quotation. And there's 3 parts to that. Plant operations, and again, this is draft, this is written as an annual amount, a yearly contract to complete all those services. Part 2 is work hourly rates. So those things that they're called out for a special service, you have a principal from the company and an operator at an hourly rate, what they would charge mileage-wise. And also part 3, emergency response, which requires them to be, available at off hours for any type of emergency and the rates that would apply. And then also list the names and license numbers of the certified operators. And then Exhibit B, before I briefly go through that, Exhibit B, and I would suggest Solicitor Sweat review this. Exhibit B is the form of service agreement contract. And after that, it runs from pages 10 through 15. And again, it provides a scope of services, but more importantly, outlines the emergency services more clearly, the contract terms, modification and termination requirements, insurance requirements, all the types of insurance, etc. Labor and equipment, safety and protection, housekeeping items. So it's a service agreement. And then on page 16 is the form of service agreement. And that's specifically where it calls out the work and refers to the upfront scope of services and the other documents, the contract time, the contract price, payment requirements, contract documents, and some miscellaneous requirements. Again, there's no indemnification in there, Gary, but a previous solicitor, for some reason, wanted 2 agreements. I think they could be combined into one, but I think your solicitor should take a look at that. But again, technically, I have discussed it with Tom, asked him questions. He's I did this draft, which again, I'm 95% done. I want Tom to take a final look at it, but it can be done by Friday. So whenever you want to release this to get quotes, we'd be ready as soon as for Monday morning.
Could you supply that to the solicitor in Word format?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Thank you.
And again, any of your comments, if you want to read it in the next couple of days and give me your comments, then we can finalize it and be done.
Sure.
Any other questions on that?
Good.
That's all I have this month.
Okay.
Alliance Folk.
You wanna talk about Waynesburg Road?
Oh, Waynesburg, yeah, do you wanna?
Yeah, you can talk about it.
Okay, well, you wanna, you're the one that put the phone call. Well, they, it's not Tunnel Ridge, it's Alliance Pool Company, right?
Well, I think they're combined in some way.
Same company?
Same company?
I'm not familiar. They requested that a water line be extended from, did you say Shearsburg?
Shepherd Road.
Shepherd Road, down to the covered bridge, over 4,000 feet. They would pay for the engineering, the construction, of course it would have to be inspected because they want you to take it over after it's complete. They pay for the permitting because it's an amendment to your existing water distribution permit. So they pay for all that and request that you take it over after it's completed. And we just started looking at this. If you want to go through with that, there's going to have to be an agreement with them. I don't know if it should be with the township or with us personally, so we can protect ourselves to get reimbursed. I'm not sure. We can ask the solicitor what his thoughts are on that. Some document with them in protecting yourselves, protecting us, and moving forward with that. And I think they want it done ASAP.
Well, they want to get started on it right away. They want a preliminary costs for,
And that's what we just started doing. We just looked at the project and started putting together engineering, permitting, and construction costs. And so that's where we are right now, just to get an idea. Again, if we're not authorized to do that, we'll just eat those costs, but we're only a few hours into it. And I just asked a couple of the other engineers to start looking at it. But, it's a free water line. It only goes by one house, I think, right now. You get by two. Two
should be able to
houses?
get at least one. One at the bottom of the hill, we have one at the top. There's only one house on that line right now. There's a house at the bottom, but I don't think anybody's living in it. Right?
1,000 feet.
No way down.
We can always have an engineer too in there.
Halfway down the hill?
No,
That's up to
they're
you.
Pardon me,
not there
Gio?
anymore.
No, they're done. They're out. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, we definitely set it up with hydrants.
The DEP calls out 70 feet, you have to have a hydrant, right?
Tunnel Ridge, you put a road right through there for.
I think it's 1,000 feet.
Is it? Yeah.
No, that's why I need
But I
water.
know in some rural areas, there may be an exception to that.
Well, out there, once we drop over that hill, that'll give you some pressure on that back side too, that you can actually get some water out that way now.
There's one house near the top where you drop over, and then one towards the bottom.
Right.
So we can have that.
Hey, free water line.
That shouldn't be an expensive one to make. But again, moving forward, we'll take out, we have taken out a project number,
Once you get-
actually right now at this stage, proposal number, we put a few hours of time in, tracking all costs to build a mine. But again, we didn't want to go too far until there is some sort of agreement with the coal company. And again, I don't know if that should just be with us as acting as their engineer, which would ensure that, it's designed and constructed appropriately, and then you guys just formally take it over, if the agreement should be initially with the township, and us acting as your agents to do that. I don't know. And you might have to think about it, I don't know.
We have to be careful about conflict for you guys.
Well, yeah, typically when I think of a conflict for the engineer, it's if there's something we do that has to go before the planning board. We can't do something and also review it under the planning code. But for design and construction of something that you're gonna take over, we've never done this before either, but
Okay.
I was thinking that there'd be no conflict because we're designing it eventually on behalf of, and
township.
constructing it on behalf of the
And they're
township.
agreeing-
And they're
agreeing
agreeing
to
to
install
pay
it.
for it.
And to install it.
It's almost like a
design.
developer that's,
Right.
that's going to, so,
Okay.
To review that, Gary, and see what- That's all you got, Gordon?
that's all I have. Unless, Gary, do you want a contact name for that company? You have it.
We have it in there, I'll make sure. he
Okay.
gets it.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Hey, Tom, why don't you come up front for a minute?
Okay.
Floor is yours. I said the floor is yours.
All right, okay. Work being done this month, we had to repair the Tunnel Street lift station, put a new pump in, new floats, new contactor in the control panel. The loop lift station had a problem with the pump, we had to buy a new volute for it. Installed that. Put a new UV sensor on the UV system, the disinfection system at the plant. It had gone, that was quite expensive, but we have to have it, it's mandated by the DEP, so. Also taking some quotes on some new meters we need down there. DEP, in our new permit, mandated that we have to do 7-day-a-week monitoring of our pH, our DO, and our UV system. To have somebody here full-time, especially after I leave, to pay somebody to come in every day to do that is quite expensive, so we're looking at some remote monitoring and what that's gonna cost. So I got some quotes on that. I think Gordon's gonna help me out on that too. Get some meters installed, do some remote monitoring, so we can, whoever the contractor is, whoever the operator is, can view that remotely, and they don't have to come to the plant to do that. That's gonna save you some money down the road in operation costs. Like I said, we've been working with the supervisors on the scope of work for my replacement. Other than that, that's pretty much what's going on. That's it for the month. Any questions?
No, we got a little presentation for you. On behalf of the Board of Supervisors, we want to present you with a plaque. You've been with us for 10 years. And from the day you started, you gave us a price, and your prices never went up in 10 years. So we can't be more appreciative of that. So
Oh, thank you.
just a little token for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Gordon, do you have anything else?
I do not, sir, thank you.
Okay.
Can I be excused?
Yeah, you can go.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, Gary, you got the floor.
Item number one is on the planning commission and their review of and development of the zoning ordinance for the township. We did receive the zoning ordinance in Word format from Carolyn Yeager today, so that, as I indicated last night, we're able to manipulate, make the changes, and I think more efficiently relay that to the planning commission members and the residents. So we have that in place. The planning commission, in looking at the agenda, I know that there is a vacancy, and you're going to take care of that. However, there is some confusion over the terms of the members. And I know Michael's been working with Tammy to review the minutes to see when various appointments have occurred. And hopefully by next month, we'll be able to make a recommendation. I think 3, maybe 4, we can tell when they were appointed, and because every time you're appointed, you get a 4-year term. And then it staggers so that someone's always coming up. If we get to a point where we can't identify, because a couple of the members last night said that they think that they've been on there for 10, 15 years. And so we're not sure that the minutes will confirm when their appointment happened. So basically, the recommendation would be for the 3, if there's 3, that we don't know what their term is, that they would agree among themselves, and we at least once and for all get it established so that we have the proper rotation of planning members. I was in touch with Bernie Grinduski, who is the Director of Business Development for PA American out of Hershey. And he is in charge of development, business acquisitions. Mr. Grinduski was the individual that we worked with when the Claysville-Donegal Joint Authority was sold. I know that they have been, in the past, expressed an interest, so I'm going to try to schedule a meeting with the board and representatives of PA American to just revisit that issue, to see, do they have an interest in acquiring all of it? Would they be interested in providing the operation and maintenance that we're looking for and that we need? So I will let the board know. I'll contact Tammy when I get a couple of the dates. I know that he comes into town once every couple weeks to meet with his regional people. But we made that contact. The Columbia compressor site plan is coming up on the agenda for approval. And I just want to give you a little bit of background. I'm recommending that the board approve it, but just so that everyone understands, I don't know if Attorney Junker is aware of this, but this past summer, maybe June, I was asked by the General Counsel for Columbia to meet with her at South Point. And it was a good meeting because she said, I want to let you know what's going on and you need to let us know what we need to do so that we can come in and be good neighbors. And at that time, we were in the beginning stages of developing a zoning ordinance, an oil and gas ordinance. You know, I even believe we gave her a copy of what we were going to be proposing, that it was going to be classified as a conditional use. And at that point, I said, I don't know what the timeline's going to be. I don't know what the final draft's going to look like. But it's pretty consistent with what we've done in other townships. And she had indicated, we don't have any problem pursuing it as a conditional use and dealing with reasonable conditions. And you know, at this point, we're not having a conditional use hearing. But when we get to your part of the agenda, the supervisors have asked that I suggest the motion for the approval and at least identify some of the points that were raised last night. I don't think you had any problem with things like making sure that Delashon Road is maintained and upgraded. We had a complaint where you did do that, but someone said all the gravel's been washed away. So that would be a condition. A condition that you will erect the 911 sign for emergency purposes, that you'll meet with the fire chief and the fire marshal to coordinate any training for emergency purposes. It was recommended that you meet with the building code inspector for the township, Doug Turbevich, and it's good at the outset for him to review the plans and just make sure that we don't get into a Mark West situation with the building that he's going to have to inspect. So I think that's smart. And I think that there was provide township with an emergency contact 24 hours a day once you're in operation, and also to provide the police chief with at least 48 hours notice when a big compressor or a big rig is going to be coming in, because we will definitely have traffic issues. And the last thing would be to coordinate with the safety department at McGuffey School District for the use of the roads during school hours, morning pickup, afternoon drop-off. And those are just basically common sense, and those would be my recommendations. Okay. Okay, last. At the last meeting, well, before I get to that, let me just say that the December 22nd hearing before Judge Fadowski on the motion filed by the Freedom Group seeking an injunction to prevent the township from advertising as public notice the planning process to adopt a zoning ordinance and official map. We met in chambers with Judge Fadowski, and after a significant amount of discussions, we entered into a settlement. And the settlement was that we would remove the sentence in the original application that states the following: any applications for land use and development received by the township after the date of this notice must comply with the provisions of the draft zoning ordinance in place at the time of said application. So we removed that from the advertising notice, and we also corrected the new date on which the planning commission was going to meet beginning 2017. That was how the motion for injunctive relief was handled, and that advertisement has started in the newspapers. I think it's appeared twice so far. Right, lastly, at the last meeting, Mrs. Croft once again referred to some errors that she perceived in my billings. And I have 5 sets of my bills for the public from January through December. I did this at my own expense. There will not be a charge to the township. But I take some of the accusations very personally and professionally. And this is my response. As I indicated in a prior letter and a prior statement to this board, we changed our format for billing in my office in May of this past year. And if you look at these invoices, you can see where the change occurred. The biggest part of that change was that attorneys and others entered their own time rather than having a central timekeeper enter the time. And between May the 13th and June the 13th, there were 9 entries that were made. 8 by my associate Michael Crooney, 1 on my behalf. I didn't make it, but it was done on my behalf. And our normal hourly rates were identified in those 9 dated entries. If you add up the time charge versus what it should have been, there was an overcharge on Michael's charges of $204 and an overcharge on my charge, or my time entry, of $35, $239. 5 entries were in the June invoice, 4 entries were in the July invoice. What Mrs. Croft neglected to point out is that in the July invoice, I gave the township a professional courtesy discount of